Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Los Angeles Dodgers are about to do it again, and what I'm about to tell you is going to make every single baseball fan outside of Southern California absolutely lose their minds. Multiple insiders, led by the legendary Ken Rosenthal himself, are now openly discussing a scenario that sounds almost too perfect, too devastating, too absolutely unfair to be real. Bo Bichette, the two-time All-Star and face of the Toronto Blue Jays infield for the better part of a decade, might not just be leaving Canada. He could be walking straight into the most loaded clubhouse in baseball, joining Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman in a lineup that would make opposing pitchers consider early retirement. And the craziest part about all of this? The breadcrumbs leading to this potential blockbuster aren't coming from random Twitter accounts or wishful thinking from Dodgers fans. This is real reporting from Ken Rosenthal, genuine front office chatter, and a free agent market that can't quite figure out what Bo Bichette is worth or where he's going to land. Welcome to the wildest Christmas present in baseball history, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of how we got here and where this insanity might be headed. Let me set the stage for you, because understanding how we arrived at this moment requires going back and connecting all the dots that have led to Bo Bichette potentially becoming a Dodger. Bo didn't end up in this position by accident or because of some sudden decline in his abilities. This is a 27-year-old player who has been one of the most consistently productive offensive shortstops in the American League for years. We're talking about a guy who led the entire American League in hits during his breakout season, who has made multiple All-Star teams, who built his reputation on loud contact and delivering in big moments. Even this past postseason, when the Blue Jays made their run, Bichette was dealing with a knee issue that had him sidelined earlier in the playoffs. But when it mattered most, when his team needed him on the biggest stage, he showed up and delivered at the plate. And you know who the Blue Jays ended up losing to in that World Series? The Los Angeles Dodgers. That kind of October performance, playing through injury on baseball's grandest stage and showing you can produce when everything is on the line, usually transforms a player from nice core piece to somebody is about to throw a terrifying amount of money at this guy in free agency. That's exactly why every single contending team that needs infield help has at least checked in on what Bo Bichette wants, even if only a handful of clubs can realistically make the dollars, the years, and the defensive fit all work together. The market for Bichette has been fascinating to watch develop because it's not following the typical script for a player of his caliber. Usually, when a two-time All-Star in his prime hits free agency, there's an immediate bidding war. Teams falling over themselves to be the highest bidder, and a deal gets done relatively quickly. But with Bichette, we're seeing something different unfold. His market has moved more deliberately, more cautiously, with teams trying to figure out exactly what they're getting and what they're willing to pay for it. Part of that hesitation comes from questions about his defensive future, which we'll get into in detail. Part of it comes from the overall economics of this offseason, where multiple teams have already committed massive dollars to other players. But the slow developing market has created an opportunity, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are positioned better than almost anyone to take advantage of it. The Dodgers are in an absolutely sweet spot that almost nobody else in baseball can match right now. Their lineup is already ridiculous at the top, with Ohtani providing unprecedented two-way value, Mookie Betts being one of the best all-around players in the game, and Freddie Freeman anchoring everything with veteran excellence and postseason heroics. They've just come off back-to-back championship runs that have people already throwing around the word dynasty, despite how difficult sustained success is in modern baseball. But for all that star power, for all the talent they've accumulated, for all the money they've spent building this juggernaut, there's one glaring question that keeps coming up. Who is their everyday impact second baseman when the games really start to matter again in October? That's where Bo Bichette's profile suddenly looks almost tailor-made for what Los Angeles needs. Multiple insiders have reported over the past several weeks that teams around the league now view Bichette more as a second or third baseman rather than a locked-in shortstop for the next decade. Even more significantly, sources close to Bichette have indicated that he's open to moving off shortstop if it means landing the right contract with the right organization in the right situation. This willingness to change positions is absolutely crucial because it expands his market dramatically and makes him fit perfectly into what the Dodgers need. Los Angeles doesn't have a long-term answer at second base right now. They've been mixing and matching, using various players in that spot without finding someone who can be the everyday guy providing both offense and defense at a championship level. Plugging in an all-star caliber bat at second base, right behind 3 MVP-level players in the lineup, is the kind of move that makes the rest of the National League just shake their heads in disbelief and frustration. It's the kind of addition that transforms a great lineup into something historically dominant. That's exactly why baseball writers, insiders, podcasters, and analysts keep circling back to the same prediction. If Bichette decides to go for a shorter contract with a huge annual salary rather than maximizing total years, the Dodgers check absolutely every single box. They can offer him elite talent around him, a chance to win immediately and consistently, a market where he'll get tremendous exposure, a willingness to pay premium dollars for premium talent, and a clear positional fit where he doesn't have to fight for playing time or deal with awkward roster shuffling. It's almost too perfect, which is exactly why so many people think this is actually going to happen, despite how unfair it would be to the rest of baseball. To understand how we even reach the point where this sounds not just realistic but likely, you have to go back to what Ken Rosenthal has been reporting about the Toronto Blue Jays' approach to Bo Bichette. Not that long ago, probably just a few months back, Blue Jays general manager Ross Atkins went on the record publicly and called any Bichette trade talk an easy no. That's the kind of definitive public shutdown that usually means don't even bother calling. Don't waste your time making offers. This guy is core to our franchise and he's staying put. When a GM makes that strong of a statement, it typically ends speculation immediately because teams know there's no point in pursuing someone who's been declared untouchable. But as the offseason progressed and the Blue Jays kept missing on their top free agent targets, as their other roster needs started piling up, as they looked at their competitive window and their payroll flexibility, something shifted in Toronto's front office thinking. Ken Rosenthal, who has sources throughout baseball and is as connected as any reporter in the sport, reported that the tone around Bichette had quietly changed in Blue Jays circles. Toronto wasn't actively shopping him, calling teams and trying to drum up interest, but they were now willing to listen if someone approached them with the right offer that met their very high asking price. Suddenly, almost overnight, instead of being the guy you just pencil in at shortstop for Toronto for the next 5 years, Bo Bichette turned into part of a much bigger and more complex infield equation. That equation potentially includes Alex Bregman, the longtime Astros third baseman, who's also a free agent and who the Blue Jays have been connected to repeatedly. Rosenthal even framed a specific scenario where Toronto could move Bichette either via trade or by letting him walk in free agency, and then sign someone like Bregman to fill their infield need. They'd be prioritizing overall infield value and roster construction over just locking onto one specific name at one specific position. Once that kind of thinking leaks out into the baseball world, once teams realize that a front office is actually open to moving someone they previously called untouchable, rival general managers stop assuming anyone is truly off the table. They start making calls, gauging interest, putting together offers, and exploring possibilities that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. And that's exactly where the speculation around Bo Bichette really exploded. With Rosenthal's reporting out there confirming the Blue Jays were no longer slamming the door on every phone call about Bichette, fans and media across baseball started constructing their own elaborate trade scenarios and free agent signing fantasies. Some saw him as the missing piece for teams that just needed one more impact bat to push them over the top. Others viewed him as a perfect conversion candidate who could slide over to second or third base and solve multiple roster problems at once for a contending team. The common thread running through almost all of the speculation was that nobody thought this would drag out into a slow, grinding free agency process that extended deep into the winter. And yet, that's exactly what has happened. which is part of why the Dodgers have emerged as such a strong potential landing spot. By late December, as we approach Christmas, multiple reports were noting how Bichette's market was moving more slowly than anyone expected, especially when compared to other big names like Alex Bregman or even Kyle Tucker, who was traded. One significant factor driving the slower market is genuine uncertainty about his defensive future. Some front office executives are clearly nervous about committing franchise shortstop money and years to a player that many respected evaluators now project as being better suited to second or third base. There's a big difference between paying someone as an elite shortstop, which is a premium position that commands premium dollars, versus paying them as a second or third baseman, where the market rate is considerably lower. Teams are trying to figure out exactly what they're buying and what the appropriate price point should be. Another factor affecting the pace of Bichette's market is simple cost and timing. Bo is still going to command a serious financial commitment regardless of which position he plays. We're talking about a multi-year contract worth significant annual salary, and in a winter where numerous teams have already tied up substantial portions of their payroll in other big deals, not everyone has the financial flexibility to stretch for another heavy contract. The teams that do have that flexibility are carefully weighing whether Bichette is the right use of those resources or whether they should deploy that money elsewhere. Even with these complicating factors, insiders have confirmed that multiple clubs remain genuinely interested in Bichette, specifically because of two key factors. First, his demonstrated willingness to change positions and be flexible about where he plays opens up roster possibilities that wouldn't exist if he was demanding to stay at shortstop. Second, the offensive upside he brings when he's healthy and right is undeniable. This is a guy who can hit for average, has gap-to-gap power, can drive in runs, and has proven he can perform on the biggest stages. So, instead of the quick bidding war that typically surrounds a player of Bichette's caliber and age, his free agency has turned into something of a slow-burn standoff. It's become a question of who blinks first. Will Bichette's camp on the length of contract they're seeking, potentially accepting fewer years if the annual salary is high enough? Or will a front office blink on the total price, deciding that landing an impact bat is worth stretching their budget even if it means paying a premium? That tension, that sense that both sides are waiting for the other to make a move, is exactly why the Los Angeles Dodgers keep popping up in prediction pieces, rumor roundups, insider reports, and analyst discussions. Multiple respected baseball voices have pointed out that if Bichette proves willing to take a shorter-term contract with a very large annual salary, Los Angeles becomes an almost unfairly perfect fit for his services. Think about it from the Dodgers' perspective for a moment. They don't need Bo Bichette to save their franchise or be the singular star that everything revolves around. They already have multiple players who can fill that role. They just need him to supercharge a lineup that already terrorizes pitchers on a nightly basis. They can offer him a clear path to slide directly into second base, playing next to another established defender on the left side of the infield, without turning it into some long, messy public debate about whose position it really is or who needs to move where. The fit is clean, the role is defined, the opportunity to win is immediate and sustained. And honestly, the narrative practically writes itself in a way that's almost too perfect for the Dodgers brand. They already beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series, eliminating them on baseball's biggest stage. Then they circle back during the offseason and sign one of the core players from that same Blue Jays team, while Toronto tries to pivot to someone like Alex Bregman. For a front office that has never been scared of being viewed as the league's villain, that has embraced spending money and accumulating talent regardless of how other teams feel about it, this kind of move is almost too perfect to pass up. But before we crown the Dodgers as Bo Bichette's inevitable destination, we need to talk about the real obstacles and wildcards that could completely blow this whole scenario up and send him somewhere else entirely. First, and most obviously, there's the money situation. Even if Bichette accepts fewer total years on his contract, he is absolutely not signing for cheap. We're still talking about a massive annual salary that will be one of the larger commitments any team makes this offseason. And every single dollar the Dodgers commit to Bo Bichette is a dollar they can't use elsewhere, whether that's adding pitching depth, maintaining future payroll flexibility, or keeping powder dry for the next star who becomes available. The Dodgers spend a lot of money, but they're not operating with unlimited resources, and every major financial commitment requires trade-offs elsewhere in the organization. Second, there's the competition from other teams that might not have Los Angeles's recent championship pedigree or star power, but who might be more desperate for a headline move or more willing to hand Bichette a longer contract. The Detroit Tigers have been mentioned repeatedly as a team with strong interest in Bichette. They have payroll space, they have young talent emerging, they need veteran help, and they could make a very compelling pitch about being a central piece of their core rather than another star in an already crowded Dodgers clubhouse. The Boston Red Sox have also been connected to Bichette in various reports, and Boston can offer him a return to the AL East where he's comfortable. A historic franchise with championship expectations and potentially a longer-term commitment than Los Angeles might be willing to make. The New York Yankees are always lurking when impact players are available, and while their infield situation is more complicated, they have the resources and the motivation to make a big splash if they decide Bichette is the right move. Third, and this is crucial, the Toronto Blue Jays themselves still hold tremendous control over how this entire situation plays out in the long term. Remember, Bichette is still under team control, not yet a free agent in the traditional sense, where he can simply choose his destination without any input from Toronto. The Blue Jays can try to keep him by offering an extension that keeps him in Toronto for the remainder of his career. They can flip him in a trade if the right package of prospects or major league talent appears, potentially getting significant value back rather than losing him for nothing. Or they can execute the Alex Bregman pivot that Ken Rosenthal outlined, reshaping their entire infield approach without ever letting Bichette walk away without compensation. Toronto's front office decisions will have enormous impact on whether the Dodgers even get a realistic chance to sign him. Add in all the usual chaos that defines every baseball offseason, surprise injuries that change team needs, ownership groups suddenly deciding to spend more or less than expected, a different star player unexpectedly becoming available and shifting the entire market, and you've got a situation where one unexpected move somewhere else in baseball can completely change Bo Bichette's entire market overnight. We've seen it happen countless times before. A team that seemed out of the running suddenly emerges as the favorite. A player who seemed destined for one destination shocks everyone by choosing another. The baseball offseason is unpredictable by nature, and assuming any outcome is guaranteed is usually a mistake. So that brings everything back to the central question that baseball fans have been arguing about for weeks now, that's dominating talk radio shows and Twitter debates and podcast discussions. Are the Los Angeles Dodgers actually about to pull this off and add Bo Bichette to their already stacked roster? Or is this just another winter fantasy that looks absolutely perfect on paper, but never actually leaves the rumor stage and becomes reality? On one side of the argument, you have Ken Rosenthal's reporting that definitively cracked open the door to Bichette leaving Toronto, showing this isn't just baseless speculation. You have the slow-moving market that makes a shorter-term, higher annual value deal more realistic than it would be in a typical bidding war scenario. And you have a Dodgers roster that features a perfectly shaped hole at second base just waiting to be filled by someone exactly like Bichette. Those factors all point toward this actually happening and Los Angeles landing yet another impact player. On the other side, you've got very real concerns